Hey guys, how you doing? We are going to be playing some Crossfire World War II miniatures rules. It's a quick play game. It's been about 3 to 4 years since the last time I played. Well, that's a lie, kind of. I think I played a game about a year ago, and it kind of kickstarted my passion back up for this very simple and eloquent game. And so I decided that today's the day we are going to do a battle report on Crossfire. Now, I'm kind of winding down with many of my painting projects, so it's freeing up some time. I feel less burdened to complete those projects, and now I can kind of sit back and do more battle reports for you guys, which I've been waiting for a long time to do. So, Crossfire, we are somewhere out in Africa. Who knows where? Maybe south of El Alamein, maybe east of El Alamein. Who knows? But anyway, regardless, we are looking at an African theater table, and it will be the British 8th Army trying to take over a village that is currently occupied and held by the German DAK forces. And the village you can see is off to the left. The British will be coming on from the right side, specifically that upper right corner, but they do have another platoon. We'll get to the forces in just a moment. I'm going to show you the table first. Now, normally I use a 6x5 table, and as you can see, I kind of cut off about 2 feet of the table here because it's it's Crossfire. I didn't need a huge table to do this. They're 15mm miniatures. And it's only one company versus one company during this game. We're going to start off with something small before we start adding vehicles. I'll show you how those work in a future report. And I was also going to do a bigger table with a lot more terrain on it next game, which would be a USMC versus Japanese somewhere in the Pacific. So if you guys are interested in this video and you like it, please let me know, and the Pacific Theater will be next up on the list. Unless you want to see some more African action, that's fine with me as well. Just let me know what you want. So, down to the table. You can see, obviously, probably the most prominent feature in the middle of the table is this weird-looking area right here. You can see there are 3 elevation gains here, 3 hills, if you will. However, they're not hills. This whole area right here is a sand dune. So we have an elevation gain here, one there, and another here. And I kind of marked those with these sand dune terrain features with the dunes in the middle. So anybody taking cover on the opposite side from a fire on the other side will receive cover from that. People in this area right here can utilize dune pits and such as cover as well from incoming fire from any direction. So that's how that will work. Over here from the British edge, it's pretty open and empty desert. As you can see, there's not much anything until you get to those dunes. We have a railway going from this table end all the way to the other table. And if they are up against the edge here like that, they will receive no penalty shooting across, of course, because they are using that as cover. But if you're further away and shooting at a unit taking cover or on the other side, then the unit on the other side will get cover because it's obstructed. This is a railway embankment. It's about half the height of a 15mm figure, as you can maybe be able to see there. So we have kind of a rocky oasis right here, and going up a couple outcrops of rocks on either side of the embankment, which the British will have to utilize on their way to the village up here. On the way to the village, we also have a burning cruiser tank. This tank will provide cover if you are on either side, of course, and due to the smoke and the structure of the tank itself, that obviously provides a good amount of cover. We also have another small piece of cover, which is a burning Kubelwagen. So you can see there's already been conflicts ongoing in this area, attempts to take over. Maybe this village previously belonged to the British and the Germans took it. Now the British are trying to retake it. Who knows? Something has already gone on here, obviously. We do have a couple fields here, wheat fields. on either side of the tracks. Whether or not these will come into play, who knows? We will find out, I guess. And then, of course, whoops, I still had a no fire marker out there. So I played this scenario one time already, to tell you the truth, just to get a warm up back into the game here and get a quick refresher on the rules. And spoiler alert, the Germans annihilated the British here. I was thinking about removing one of the squadrons or one of the platoons, so the Germans would only have a partial company. But then I reflected that, well, mainly it was an annihilation simply because the German dice were absolutely on fire. I mean, they were rolling 3 6s for their regular direct fires, killing squads outright. You know, they were passing all their rallies amazingly. It was just ridiculous. Their dice were on fire. So looking at this village, which is the objective for the British, the British need to basically push the Germans out of this village, and we can see there is 5 buildings of various sizes, and all of them have removable roofs, so squadrons can enter the buildings and fight from the inside, or they can fight from the rooftops. As you can see, there are already some Germans placed on top of the roofs. And we'll get another angle here of the village. See, I have some nice desert trees, palm trees, Mediterranean palm. So there's a little better look at a few of the buildings there. Like I said, the Mediterranean palms and the Phoenician palms. And yeah, I had to edit that clip because I got a phone call right in the middle of my recording, and nobody wants to hear my phone ring, do they? So that is the battlefield as we can see it. And now we'll go ahead and talk about the forces. Well, since we're over here on this side, we'll talk about the German forces, since we are already here. They do have a company commander, their CNC, who's already set up headquarters in this building. They are right there. And all of these miniatures for both sides are 15mm Peter Pig. And we can see the CNC, if we can get a focus there. There we go, sort of. Is the officer with binoculars. He has a rifleman with him and a radio operator. And then their garrisoning platoon, who is already in position. They have their platoon commander down here and between the buildings. They have one squadron right here on top of the building, and all my squadrons look pretty much the same. They have 2 riflemen on the base. Come on, 2 riflemen on the base and an SMG. So, one squadron of that platoon is on the roof. Another is inside the building. And the 3rd platoon is inside that building. Or the 3rd squadron. So that makes up 1 platoon. 3 squadrons equal a platoon, along with their platoon commander. And now we have their, this is acting independently, but he's part of the CNC group, the company commander, but he's acting independently this game. We have a German HMG on top of this building, nobody else inside there, but this HMG is pretty much, has a field of fire across where the last British assault came from, which was where that smoking tank is. So he set up a pretty good position for himself there. The Germans do have another platoon here, and they are just returning from the rear area, perhaps gathering supplies or something like that, returning with intelligence, or maybe they're fresh soldiers coming to reinforce this company, who's obviously already been in some action here. So they are just now coming onto the board. And then they have a 3rd platoon, which is way up here on this side of the map. And this platoon is returning from laying minefields somewhere far off onto this side of the map, which is, obviously it's non-existent because it's not there. But that's where they're returning from. They were out there laying minefields, which was very common in Afghan theater, and that's where they're returning from. So they're just kind of walking back through these dunes, going back to the village, and not really knowing that there's a whole British assault coming from that side. So those are the German forces. It's one full company. It's 3 platoons and a CNC and a separate independent HMG down there on top of that building. So that is the Germans. And now we will go ahead and talk about the British. And the British are, let me move these pen markers there. The British 8th Army have pretty much the same composition, except I gave them one boost here to see if maybe it'll help them out, because they got a whooping so bad last game. So they have their CNC, their company commander. Uh-oh, more tripod malfunctions. Come on, focus. There we go. So we have their CNC, their company commander, which is the officer in front with the pistol. And he has a radio operator running, which I was holding on to, has a rifle slung over his shoulder, and another man carrying something. They also have a HMG acting independently. And the little bonus that I gave him this turn is a forward observer and a 2-inch mortar. And they are going to be starting off in this little rocky oasis up here. And that is where the 2-inch mortar will be firing from. These were some of my earlier painted miniatures. Come on, come on. Oh, they're so ugly it's not going to focus. Anyway, these are some of my earlier painted figures when I first got into historical wargaming about 8 to 10 years ago, somewhere around there. So they're not the best painted, but they still do the trick. I think the Desert Africa Corps, the Germans, on the opposing side, I had refined some shading techniques, stuff like that, so they do look better than these British. However, these British definitely do the job. They have their first platoon, which is basically they have orders to proceed straight up the railway embankment towards the village and see what happens. And then they have another platoon right here on the same side of the railway embankment. However, they are going to be heading up that way and perhaps trying to get behind that tank, maybe going to them fields to flank the village. Who knows what's going to happen. And then they have a third platoon, which is right here. And this is their pretty much a flanking force, a British flanking force, and they are going to be making their way through the dunes here and hopefully into the village. And hopefully between one platoon going through the dunes, one going up the rails, and the other going around here, hopefully we can get into that village one way or another. That's the game plan. However, remember, there's a German platoon coming onto the board right there. Just on the other side of the dunes, they cannot see each other from where they're at. And yeah, that's going to be interesting to see what happens there. The British are going to get the initiative first, so it will be their turn first. And now that you know what the forces are and the objectives and the terrain itself, we're going to go ahead and get this game started. Alright, in my first playthrough of this scenario, I did something completely different. So I'm going to start with the British on the opposite side of the table here. And we are going to activate this platoon so they don't get caught out in the open like they did in the last game. And we are simply going to do a group activation. And it has to be in a straight line in the direction they're facing, so they're all facing this way. And you basically say, you know, what unit you're going to move. In this case, I'm going to do a group activation, all 3 of them, plus the platoon commander. And you point to an area. And each unit has to end its move within 1 base width of that area. So we are going to move right here. So, and now that I've declared where I'm moving to and who is moving, we simply take this unit and move it here. Now, if there were any Germans in line of sight of this unit, they could declare reaction fire and fire upon that enemy. And if they scored a suppression or a kill, the British turn would be over and it would be the German turn. However, Nobody is in line of sight yet. You know what? I lied. There is a unit that's in sight. There is a German unit inside that corner building right here who has a line of sight down to this area because there's no elevation right here. It's just clean field right in there between these two elevation gains right here. So he can be seen. However, remember I said this counts as cover. I'm going to say because this is a duny area or whatever, they would receive cover from that building, so it would reduce their fire dice from 3 to 2 if the Germans fired upon them. So we've completed one movement activation. This squad is in LOS of that building, so the Germans are aware of this British platoon coming through the dunes here. So now we are going to do another activation with this same platoon, and we are going to move them, but it's a move activation, but we're pivoting. We're pivoting that way. That unit is going to just pivot slightly, and this unit is going to pivot slightly. However, the Germans are now going to fire. They're going to use reaction fire to shoot at this unit. Remember, a pivot is a move. So the Germans are only going to get 2 dice to fire here, and they're going to shoot from that building, which I showed you earlier. So 2 dice to fire from this building, and they need 5s or 6s as a hit. 1 hit equals a pin, 2 hits is a suppression, and a 5 and a 2. So they got a pin on this unit right here. So this unit needs to rally that pin off before it can move. Pinned units can still fire with no negative effects to them, but they cannot move. A suppressed unit cannot move or fire. And the color coding for my gems is this brown/orange is a pen marker. The red gems are, you guessed it, suppression markers. And then the blue gems are for no fire markers, which means on the non-phasing player, if they use reaction fire and they fail to score a hit, then they're marked with a no fire. So since that German unit did score at least a pin, he can still continue to shoot. So if this unit moves, attempts to move into the sand dunes, that same unit can still continue his fire. So that's how that works. Now these units, this whole platoon is going to activate once more, and they're going to attempt to move into the dunes here. So it's going to be a group activation with these 2 units because this one cannot move, but I'm not going to try and rally that yet. So I'm going to move with these 2 units, and we're going to try and get into these dunes here. So we are moving, and stop. So that same German squadron is going to shoot at that unit now, using 2d6 because the dunes are covered. Oh my gosh, the German fire dice continue to be extremely hot. Scored 2 6s. That will be a suppression. It'd be impossible to get a kill from that angle because of the cover, but still suppression is very good, and if somebody gets a second suppression, then that equals a kill. So that is the end of the British turn. However, this unit can still move because it was a group move. So they are going to continue, and they need to try and get all the way into those dunes and stop. So that same German squadron is going to shoot at this unit now with 2 dice because they're still in cover. And that's a cocked die, so we'll re-roll that. So we rolled a 5 and a 2, which is now a pin. So this whole platoon now, now I got the NCO. Oh, that's not good. So, the British turn is over because they were halted by a suppression marker from reactive fire. So a suppression or a kill will end their turn. And this platoon is in a lot of trouble here. 2 units are pinned, 1 is suppressed, and all that was done by 1 German squadron in a building who is shooting into cover. So now we go to the German turn. Okay, well, I think it's obvious what the Germans should start off with, and that's this platoon right here. And they are going to activate and do movement, and as a group move, and they're going to move right up on the edge right here of these dunes. And the British will not be able to declare reaction fire because it is out of their fire arc. So they basically have from the center point of the stand to each corner, to each front corner, and continuing in that same arc. So it's about a 45, maybe 60 degree arc, something like that. But regardless, they are out of a firing solution on those Germans. They won't have one. So the Germans are going to move right here. So boom. And one thing about command and control with the Germans is these squadrons can act completely independently. They can start or end their move out of line of sight of their platoon commander. For American, British, and Japanese forces, in order for a unit to activate, they have to be within line of sight of their platoon commander, although they do not have to end their move within line of sight. But they need to be back in line of sight again to be activated once more if they do move out of line of sight. With Russians, French, and Italians, they need to both start their turn in line of sight of their platoon commander, and they have to end their movement within line of sight of their platoon commander. So that kind of shows you the level of training and initiative between the nationalities. The Germans obviously, from the private on up, were trained to lead and do every job for the most part. Very well trained and highly motivated forces. So that gives you an example of that. But anyway, back down here, and now we can see that the Germans have moved up and they are ready to go here. So they're going to do a group fire with these 2 units right here. Are going to shoot at this unit that is pinned currently, and it is still going to be 2d6 because they're shooting up and over all these dunes right here. So this unit is in cover still. So 2d6, we will handle the first squad right here. And the benefits of shooting as a group is, yes, you do have to all shoot the same target, so you can't spread it out. But if this one fails to get a hit or suppression, pin or suppression, then, or excuse me, a suppression or a kill, even a pin will end the turn. But this unit will still get to fire because it's a group activation. It's very similar to the group movement. So the first squadron will fire 2d6, needs 5s or 6s, and rolled a 4 and a 3. So that is no hit. So the German activation is over, but he still has this 1 squad left to shoot. And we rolled a 6 and a 4, which would be a pin, but that unit is already pinned, so there is no effect to that. And now the German activation is over, and it will go back to the British. And so I think we really need to do something about this situation right here. But first, let's go over to this direction. And the forward observer, who is right here, is going to move in a straight line. He was actually right here. So in a straight line to the base of this hill, and nobody is going to shoot at him, and he is now here. He's now going to rotate that way. So that's the first first British activation, and they cannot control fire on a turn that they're not entirely stationary the entire activation. So if you control fire, you cannot move him after, or if you move before, like I just did, you cannot control fire after you move. So they have to be stationary the entire initiative of that player's turn to be able to control fire of whatever weapon that they're attached to. In this case, it's the British 2-inch mortar. So now we need to do something about these Brits up here. So we need to remove some pen markers and try and rally these guys. So the problem is if you fail a rally, it's the end of your turn. So do we want to run some support over there? Or do we want to see if they can just handle it by themselves? So we are going to send one squadron over there to assist. So this unit is going to rotate. Nobody's in line of sight to shoot. And he's going to move right near the forward observer. Right there. And we can easily tell he's part of the other squad because he has no bayonets. They have no bayonets on their rifles. Whereas this other squadron, they have bayonets on their rifles. So it's easy to differentiate between the two. Now we need to think about what else we're going to do. So let's now do a group activation here and move these guys up in between these rocky outcrops over here. So 1, 2, 3, and they are in sight of this German unit in that corner building on the rooftop, and they are going to fire at this lead squadron right here. They only get 2 dice because they have the railway embankment as cover. So 2d6, we roll a 6 and a 3, so that is a pin on this front unit right there. But it's still the British turn, thankfully. So now what do they want to do? We're going to, this might be risky, but we're going to activate them as a group movement. And we are going to move right here, which if we make it there, that will put us in concealment from the Germans on that rooftop, and I believe the machine gun as well behind him. So he's going to run, stop. The German player says stop, and the same squadron on the rooftop is going to shoot at this squad. Let me clarify something here real quick, just one moment. Okay, I wanted to double check something, and I was right. I did play it right. So in reaction fire, if the Germans shoot, if I was thinking, well, maybe if they get a pin, they're still marked with no fire. Only if they get a suppression or a kill, they can continue firing. But my initial thought was correct. So if they get a pin or a suppression or a kill, they can still continue using reaction fire throughout the enemy activation, of course. So if they get a suppression or a kill, then the initiative switches anyway. So yes, if they get a pin, they can still continue using reaction fire throughout the turn. So now we will go back to this situation right here, where the German squad in this building, on the roof of this building, is firing at this unit who just came out of the open. And he is in the open. This is not counting as cover, and also he's on the rooftop, so he does have a clear field of fire straight down. If they were against the embankment, I would still give them the cover bonus, because that means they can hug down into it, etc. But they're away from it, they can't take advantage. Ooh, that's cocked. Almost a 6 now. And a 2. So we rolled a 6, a 3, and a 2. That is a pin. So this squadron is pinned, but the rest of them can continue moving. So this unit is now going to move and stop. Stop right there. And the German squad is once again going to shoot. Roll a 6, so that's a pin. On that unit as well. And now this unit is moving. Stop right there. Going to shoot. Same German squadron. And rolled a 6 and 2 1s. So that's another pin. And it looks like the same thing is happening this time around as the last game I played, which is the German dice are just absolutely on fire. You know, pins aren't kills, but when you can pin an entire platoon with a single squadron, that's a little ridiculous. So the NCO is going to go out here, and yeah, excuse me. So he is out of LOS as he's behind these squadrons, and by the time he comes out, he's concealed behind the smoke. So he can go to the original objective, which is right there. So the NCO somehow manages to make it through. Still the British turn here. So what does the British want to do? Well, the HMG probably needs to get up there and start helping some guys out. So the HMG is going to move in front of this squad right here. So they are going to go right there and stop I couldn't point with two hands, but the initial objective for them was right about there. But now at this point, both squads in this building, on top of and in that building, are going to use reaction fire against that unit. So we will do the first squad inside the building, only rolls with 2 dice because they're on the same level as this embankment. They did get a 5, so that's a pin. That machine gun is pinned right where it's at. And now the second squad also rolls 2 dice because this squadron is up against the railway embankment. And 5 and a 2, so that's another pin. You can't do anything about that. That adds no effect if a unit's already pinned. So there is an extreme amount of fire coming from that German village. And as you can see now, all 3 British platoons are now in serious trouble. And it's pretty much all been done by 2 squads. So 2 squads are holding down basically an entire company of soldiers. And I think that can be, extremely feasible in real life. And I find the mechanics of this game very simple and interesting. It's fast play, especially if you have 2 players. You can use hidden units and such. And it's a very fun game. Unique rules and all that good stuff. But anyway, I digress. We will go to this platoon here since it is still the British turn. They're going to attempt to rally, and they're going to start with this squad, and this is a +1 leader. So with this unit trying to rally, it's a regular status. It would normally, rallying off a pin would be a 4, 5, or 6. Since he has a leader right there, +1 leader, it's going to be a 3, 4, 5, or 6. And we roll 5, so that pin is removed. And now we want to try, that's another thing about rallying. A rallying a rally move order cannot be interrupted by fire, so you are safe at attempting to rally. And now we are going to rally this unit right here, so 4, 5, or 6, and we rolled a 1. So that's a fail, and that is a failure of initiative. So now we go back to the German turn. Okay, so now we are going to, we're going to start on this side of the board before we work our way over back to those dunes, because I don't want to leave this rear German platoon hanging back there too much longer. So they are going to first rotate down towards the bottom of the table, and now they are going to move to this railway embankment. So right there. And are they within line of sight there? Let's see. No. Between the railroad, this wheat field, and the smoking tank, there is no line of sight down from that area right there. So initially, I had placed these wheat fields were not here in the last game. I placed them because I figured, well, the British needed just one more feature to, attempt to get into this village and have cover when doing so. And so I placed those wheat fields there. Now it looks like with the situation that's developing over here with these two platoons entirely penned, the HMG penned, and that platoon plus the one separate squad sent over to support, I mean, they're all in deep trouble at this point in time. So looks like the Germans are going to be able to take advantage of this terrain. Now, yeah, it's going to be interesting here. So we're going to do individual unit activations right now to get these guys in. So we are going to rotate this one and move into there. We're going to rotate this one here and move him down this way into this field. And this one is also going to rotate down and enter that field. The platoon commander will stay close to the village, and he will go right there. And now that they have all entered the terrain, now they can move through it, and so they will go up to the edge of that wheat field. Nobody is in line of sight because the burning Kubel wagon now. So nobody's in line of sight there. And now we will move, rotate, rotate, move forward to the edge. And the platoon leader is going to go in the middle of there. So we do have some firing activations that we can do here with these squadrons, because they can see there. They are considered concealed, so they'll only have 2 dice, but they do have all 3 squadrons. So we'll say before that unit moved, I moved this unit back because the British, one of the squadrons, you know what, let's make it 2 of the squadrons. 2 of the squadrons are going to use reactive fire. Grab my dice, they were over on the other side of the table there. So they're shooting at this squadron right here. First squad fires, rolls a 6 and a 1, that is a pen, and the second squadron fires, rolls a 6 and a 3, that's another pen, so no effect. And now this unit can continue his move back up to where we originally had. And now that third British squadron down here within line of sight will shoot at that squadron that just moved up with 2d6. Rolled a 3 and a 2, so they are marked with no fire because they failed to get a single hit. So now we can see they are pinned and marked with no fire for the rest of this activation. And now it is still the German turn. So what we are going to do is we are going to use these units right here to lay down some heat against those British squadrons that just used reaction fire to shoot at them. So now this squadron, the one that is pinned, is going to shoot at the NCO. Let me double check and see how rules work for shooting at NCOs. Okay, so a squad can indeed target a platoon commander as long as they are the closest target in the open. So that is the case here. So we are going to shoot at the NCO with 3 die with the first squad here. We're going to do 2 separate activations. It may not be wise, but we'll see. And that was not wise. We scored 2 3s and a 2, which is no hits. So the German activation is now over, and it is now the British turn. Okay, so this was a very important turn for the British, and thankfully they got some really lucky rolls and some good things happened. So we'll talk about what happened. The first thing we did is we used the forward observer there to spot on top of that building, and that building, that no fire marker should be on the unit inside. That no fire unit was on him, but it's okay, he's done now, so we can go ahead and take that off. So that unit reacted to fire, I think, that squad right there, and missed with his 2 die, so he was marked with no fire. But anyway, back to the mortar and his observer. The observer spotted the unit on top of that building. The mortar rolled 2 6s, which was a suppression, so that unit was suppressed right from the start. That was extremely helpful. That unit's been causing a lot of trouble. Let's see what else. There was also a no fire marker on this unit inside that building as he attempted to hit the soldiers in the dunes as they moved. We did manage to do a lot of rallying in this area. We took the suppression marker off that unit, and then he moved, and then he got pinned again. The squad sent from 1st platoon over, who is now over here, the squadron who came over here to support, ran up on top of this hill and was pinned by the unit in that building before he got a no fire marker. And after he was pinned, he proceeded to, I think he suppressed that unit. But you can see here the Germans are missing a platoon. Actually, no, this unit killed the unit that was there. That's right. They got 2 6s and a 5 and wiped out one of the German squadrons. This unit right here, it suppressed this squadron right here. And I can't remember who penned that, but they also have a no fire marker from shooting, I believe, at that squad right there. Anyway, so you can see the British are kind of regaining the advantage over here. Sending that 1 squad in support was a vital move that really helped them out over here on this side. The platoon leader has to remain there, so he has line of sight to this squad up on top of that hill, so he can activate and hopefully come back down and regain his platoon. He may just stay with them and continue on, but he will be out of line of sight unless he moves up here, and then that squad moves out there. I don't know, we'll have to figure it out one way or another. Anyway, in the meantime, he's staying right here because he has line of sight to his squad over there up on the hill, and he has line of sight to the remainder of his platoon right here. The HMG did manage to get up there and threw out some lead at the squadron on top of the building to no effect. These squadrons right here, I did not try and rally them because I wanted to ensure that we got some fire off. We got suppressions on both of them on the first 2 fires, and then the 3rd squadron missed altogether, and that ended the British turn. So that was the British turn. Very effective. We managed to wipe out one squadron, so the first kill goes to the British. It's still going to be a tough slog to get into that village here, but we'll see what happens. It was a very short activation for the Germans. They did fire with this pinned squad. This squad was originally pinned, and he suppressed that squadron. So that squad is now suppressed, of course. That no fire marker should be gone. I forgot to take that off last match. And now we are looking at what happened next. We tried to rally. We tried to rally this squadron right here and failed. And that was a bad move on my part. I probably shouldn't have rallied just yet, but I mean, I had to do something because they can't do anything. They have one squadron right here, but we have seen what one squadron can truly do, but I don't get the same feeling from that one from here because there's so much obstructions and cover that they can use to assault that. So we'll see what happens next. Okay, wow. I really thought that the British were probably going to lose this one again. I had I had visions of the first playthrough all over again. It seemed to be going the exact same way, but they have seriously turned it around. To start off, what did we do? Oh, so because the squadron that was down here, or the platoon that was down here, all three of those units were pinned, but the NCO, the platoon commander, was right next to all of them, so he got the +1 to all three. Rallied all three of them, ordered a charge to those two German squads that were here on the edge of the wheat field. Both were suppressed, so only one squad could do reaction fire. This squad tried to fire, didn't score any hits, and got a no fire marker on them. So all three of these British squadrons got into close combat with the two German squadrons, wiped them out, no losses to their own. So the Germans just lost two more squadrons on top of the one that they lost over there. And then they rearranged and got into position to continue on into the village from there. So that was actually an amazing event, and I probably should have recorded it. Another thing here is these units all rotated to get firing arcs into the village. Excuse me. None of them fired yet because I wanted to take care of the dunes over there first before I risked any shots into troops that were in cover in buildings and such. So over to the dunes here, this squadron, MVP of the game right here, took out another German squad. It was suppressed. There was one suppressed German squad there, I believe, and he suppressed it a second time, which is a kill. So that squadron right there has 2 squad kills. And then we moved one unit up there alongside here. This unit fired there and pinned that squadron. And then we attempted to rally this unit, and we failed the rally order. So that was the end of the British turn. But at this point, the British cannot complain. Oh yes, the observer in the very beginning of the turn did attempt to do something to the squadron in that building, but missed. Didn't pin, didn't suppress, but that's okay because indirect fire from support weapons, if you don't get a hit, you do not lose initiative. Your turn is not over, so that's why you should always start off with those if you possibly can, if the situation allows for it. So, yes, that is it at this point. This platoon commander is still down here, so he has LOS on his squad, and yeah. That's about it. That's how we're looking. I think we're going to call it at this point. There's not much that can be done. Well, we'll see. We'll see if the Germans can rally. If the Germans can rally and maybe arc them around and see what happens here. But I don't see any hope. They have one full platoon in here, but they're getting ready to be completely surrounded. So we'll see. The German turn lasted, about exactly 10 seconds. The only thing that happened was they rotated this unit and then moved them up to the edge of the wheat field to make a stand here, and these guys just absolutely unloaded on them and you can see how that ended up with that squadron being suppressed. So next turn, which is now, these British have a free movement. You know, nobody can shoot at them except for that HMG to try and suppress them. But they're going to go into close combat and overrun that. And then these squadrons didn't get a chance to rally. I'm just going to call it at this point because it's pretty much over. The British wave is coming now. And yeah, so we're going to leave it at that. But very interesting battle. Definitely had a momentum swing there in the first few turns. I definitely thought that that British platoon up in the dunes was going to get wiped out. And then we had all the British over on this side of the embankment were pinned down out in the open. You know, it's an interesting game. I think the momentum changed that turn when I controlled fire on that mortar onto that building and suppressed that unit. That's when things really started to turn around. Obviously, Mr. MVP up there on top of that sand dune right there, I mean, they just ran up and just started lighting them down. It reminded me of that Band of Brothers scene when Winters runs over the embankment edge, the crest of the hill, and there's like a whole company or a whole battalion of SS right there, and man, he just starts lighting them up. That's kind of reminded me of that scene there, except British in Africa. Other than that, that is where it sits at. British victory on the replay following a German victory of the same scenario. So it's 1-1 on this same scenario. It was almost 2-0 for the Germans. I swear, man, it was really close. I thought the Germans were going to end it in like the first 3 or 4 turns. So that's it, guys. Thanks for checking it out. I appreciate you watching. If you want to see more Crossfire, let me know.